Good morning. This morning on Fire, Black Press Live, we have a very special topic, a very important topic. And I'll start by saying that for those who might be in any type of stress or distress, the National Alliance on Mental Illness has a helpline, and you can reach them Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Eastern Time. It's 1-800-950-6264. Again, that's 1-800-950-6264, or you can email them at info@NAMI.org, NAMI.org. This morning we have one of the greatest basketball players ever from the Detroit Pistons, Isiah Thomas. Isiah, welcome to Black Press Live, and we also have our president and CEO, Dr. Benjamin Chavis, to discuss this most important issue.
Thank you very much. And I just want to give a shout out to Isiah Thomas. He's a phenomenal brother on the court and off the court, helping to improve the quality of life, not only for African Americans, but for all people in the United States and throughout the world. On behalf of the Black Press of America, the National Newspaper Publishers Association, Isiah, we just want to thank you, my man, for your leadership, for your longevity. You're now also an outstanding entrepreneur as well as a visionary on issues like the mental health of African Americans, particularly during this pandemic that we are experiencing, COVID-19. So welcome to the program. We look forward to the discussion.
Thank you for having me, and I appreciate the kind words, and I appreciate both of you gentlemen in terms of your longevity, what you've meant to the community, and in those moments of silence, your voice has always rang loud. So thank you for always being pioneers and leaders in the space also.
Well, Isiah, I want to start with a very sobering stat, and it certainly hits close to home to you. In Cook County, Illinois, home to Chicago, your hometown, officials say suicide in the Black community this year have been happening at an extreme pace, with men accounting for nearly 80% of victims. Meanwhile, a snapshot of government data collected last month indicates that 4 in 10 Black Americans were struggling with anxiety or depression, while a Centers for Disease Control and Prevention report released this past Thursday showed that 15% of Black people surveyed in June had seriously considered suicide in the past 30 days, compared with about 8% of whites. And finally, a Congressional Black Caucus report that was released late last year noted that suicide rate among Black youth nearly doubled from 2007 to 2017. Isiah, your thoughts, your response, please.
Those numbers are shocking. However, with the system that we're forced to live up under here in America as Black and brown and people of color, these numbers, they need to be spoken to. However, there's a I guess what I would call a large concern when these numbers continue to rise, particularly in our youth, because what that says is that poverty, the heavy burden of poverty, is always there. The joblessness is always there. It's in your household every single day. I'm from the west side of Chicago, grew up 6 brothers, 2 sisters, and every single day, watching my dad lose his job, then go into a state of depression, then find another job, then lose his job again. The way the system has been geared towards basically interrupting our families, the head of households, the wife, and also the husband. We have to look at the government, who has basically historically in America has basically tried to separate our families. I can distinctly remember when my mom was they were forcing her onto welfare, and the welfare man would come to the house, and my dad having to leave the house so the welfare man wouldn't see a male figure in the house.
Mhm.
So the system has really combined in a way to put us in this mental and physical state. Now, what that generation before us was able to do through messaging, through our music, through our education, was to teach us what was happening to us in our environment. Uh, our lack of public education right now is down. The food insecurities that we have in our communities, all of that is down. So when you're attacking the mental state of us, and then you're attacking the physical state of us, then depression follows that. And then you put on top of that a pandemic, and then someone comes in and they give a study and say, hey, guess what? These people are feeling really bad and they want to hurt themselves. Absolutely. You have those thoughts, but people like us can message. And as long as we message and we let our communities know what is actually happening to them, how they're being affected physically, how they're being affected mentally, I am positive as a community we can overcome, and we can thrive. And not only can we thrive, but we can also advance and continue to advance in this America as we fight for our civil rights, our equal rights, and our voting rights. These are all things that are basically on top of those families who are going through the extreme poverty that we live in. And of course, there's mental and physical ailments that comes along with that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Brother Thomas, thank you so much. And, you know, the Black press, what Stacey and I represent today, the Black press in America, we're 193 years old since Freedom Journal was first published in New York City in March of 1827. The reason why I mention that is because we are in the messaging business. We give out the messages. And that's why the interview with you today is so important, because we want to make sure that we rise up to our responsibility to not only alert Black America what is going on in terms of the impact, as you've said, of poverty, of systemic racism, and now the pandemic, all these things compiling and converging on the consciousness and on the quality of life of our people. But I think it's a message, you know, Isiah, unfortunately, the question of mental health is almost a taboo subject. A lot of Black folks don't like to even talk about it, or to say, they think there's something wrong with even having this discussion. But as you pointed out, if we don't take responsibility, if we don't have the discussions, if we don't put out the right messages to our people where they can hear that it may not, poverty is bad, but poverty doesn't have to contribute to ending your life. We may have depression, we may get frustrated, we may even get anger about something. Anger is not, it's an emotion that everybody goes through, but it's how we handle it. And one of the things we want to give out today is a message for people who are struggling with stress for a number of reasons, what they can do about it. And we just appreciate you being an icon, not only in sports, but now an icon in consciousness raising for all people, but particularly for Black America. We just thank you for speaking out on this subject. And we want to continue to work with you through all of our newspapers, through all of our websites, through all of our social media channels. This is a subject matter that we cannot afford not to speak about and not to raise a discussion about. How do you see overcoming some of this inherent almost embarrassment or taboo to even to discuss mental health for Black America?
Again, an excellent question, and I would just speak to my own personal experiences, and during that period of time when my family and all of our families in the same neighborhood, we're all struggling. The one thing that we crave for, hey, is validate my feelings. Yeah, I'm feeling angry, but there's a reason why I'm feeling angry. You know, it's not that I'm just waking up angry all the time. There are things that are affecting the way I feel. You know, I don't have access to real food. So the food that I'm eating is all processed, and it's loaded with things that aren't good for me. So consequently, it's making me feel a certain way internally. So I want that to be validated, that my grocery stores aren't full with vegetables that I have to, the only thing that is allocated to me as a resource for food is a fast food restaurant where I have to go in and get a meal from there. Validate my mental state of mind in terms of when I go to school and I sit in a classroom, the teacher that is teaching me looks nothing like me, nor is interested in my history or my background, and looks at me as a Black male as someone to feel fearful of or threatened of. I need that validated, okay? And once these feelings are validated and they're brought into the light, now me as a person, as a self, I can be like, okay, there is a reason why I feel this way. And now that I know why I feel this way, how am I going to counteract that? And that's when people such as yourself, in terms of messaging, comes in, the teaching that we get, the messaging from the neighborhood, the community, everyone comes into play. And there are a lot of success stories in our community. While we're studying the depression and mental illness and physical illness, there are moms and dads every single day who are sending their kids to school. These kids are graduating from school and going on to college and then having professions. We need to do a study around how are these parents in these harsh physical and mental conditions still finding the joy and the gratitude to elevate their families, to elevate their kids, and get them along the way to the pathway of success, when everything is really geared towards them in terms of having failure. We need to shine the light more on those parents and ask them questions of, how did you do it? Not how did you get a basketball star or a football star? How did you get an A student graduate out of a public school with a public school education right now that has been defunded, lack of resources? How did you do that? And let's start elevating those, because on every block, if there's 10 houses on a block and we've all grown up in poverty, okay, there's 3 bad houses, but there's 7 good houses. We tend to focus and study the 3 bad houses. Let's study them 7 good ones where everybody's right. Okay, what's going on there? And let's shine a light on that, and let's elevate that in our community, as opposed to always elevating the bad stuff that the national media sometimes tends to focus on.
Absolutely. That's where the Black press comes in. We're definitely going to take up that elevation of striving for excellence in spite of the disparities, achieving success in spite of the hurdles that we have to overcome. You know, we have often said on other programs, Isiah, that resilience is in the DNA of our people. We just have to tap into that resilience, that DNA from our parents and from our community. And that's why the study of our history is so important, because, well, yes, we have hard times right now, but we've had hard times before, and we found out a way how to make it through these hard times and hold on to the value of our own lives. Stacey, you were going to ask another question.
Well, absolutely. Again, we are talking with the great Isiah Thomas, the NBA Hall of Famer, NBA champion, but also, as Dr. Chavis has brought out, an entrepreneur, a successful entrepreneur. And again, just to remind everyone that we are talking about mental illness in the Black community, and there's a helpline that the National Alliance of Mental Illness has established, 1-800-950-6264. Isiah, you mentioned starting out welfare. You overcame a lot to where you are now. What was it for you that motivated you to get involved in this cause? Because you have a lot going on. I mean, it's easy to see, but what motivated you, Isiah, to get involved in such a great cause, really?
It's who we are as a people in this United States of America, in this system. And my dog is getting ready to bark, so if he starts, I apologize. We're at home, but when what made me get involved is that I was always involved. Again, coming from the west side of Chicago, being born in the 60s, and seeing what happened to my neighborhood, seeing what happened to my brothers, seeing what happened, to my mom and dad in terms of our family, from a working environment, the depression that my dad went through when he lost his job and sat in the window for literally close to 6 months, just physically beaten down and depressed. But at that time, we had no name for it. We didn't know what to call it. There was no treatment for it. We just was like, hey, he's going through something right now. We just have to let him be. But to watch a proud man and to watch a proud mother, not only just mine, but in our entire community, to watch them continually get beat down by the system, to get beat down by the lack of expectations of them, but yet still find a way to wake up every single day and give to somebody else, to help somebody else, to inspire somebody else. To me, that's truly what it's all about. And I would not be sitting here today had it not been for people in my community or people such as yourself lending a hand, giving a message, and saying, hey, you're going to be all right, not knowing what tomorrow would bring. I woke up every day looking for food and begging for food. We were homeless, we were getting set out, but at the same time, we found joy in music, Earth, Wind, and Fire, Marvin Gaye, those messages that they were singing back then during that time, that was landing on my ears. It helped me get through the day. It helped me not feel the type of pain that was inside of me. When the Temptations came out with, Cloud Nine, childhood part of my life was very pretty. See, I was born and raised, and so those messages, what you hearing in the music, what you hearing from your teachers, what you hearing from your parents, it does help to self-medicate you, so you don't have to turn to drugs, or you don't have to turn to some other type of side hustle that's going to get you by. You don't have to look at your brother and say, man, I'm going to take what you have, as opposed to your brother saying, hey, I know you don't have anything. Let me share with you. That's where we have to get back to as a community.
And Isiah, did that, I'd imagine it did. I'm going to ask you the question anyway. Did that translate or transfer to the basketball court? Because you were never the biggest guy on the court, but you were often the best guy on the court. Did that resiliency and that mindset that you grew up with, did that help you to become such a great superstar?
100%. And it helped me, but let's not say that's what you need to have to become that. Now, how did I use that oppression, and how did I make it work for me? How did I make those stereotypes work for me out on the basketball floor? The way I was able to use it is, we came up with the bad boys, because the labeling theory that they had put around us, because the messages that we were talking about in terms of race, class, and gender during that time, the predominantly white male Caucasian media perceived those messages sometimes as threatening. So the things that we were talking about and the things that we were doing, they fashioned and they put the labeling theory on us. The labeling theory is, I had never been called a thug before in my life. Okay.
Wow.
But in sport, they were able to write that Isiah Thomas and the Detroit Pistons played like thugs. Bill Laimbeer had never been called a thug in his life. All the ugly language that my parents and all of us tried to avoid, they put on us from a basketball standpoint. So in terms of the way they wrote about us, the description of us, my smile became something that they labeled an assassin smile. I call my smile a joyous smile. Why does it have to be something negative? And so the negativity of us, what we did as a team is said, okay, we're going to take those stereotypes and we're going to make them work for us.
Mm-hmm.
And if the opponent thinks that we're these tough guys, then they're not going to think about playing basketball. They're going to think about fighting. And the more they think about fighting, the more we can play basketball.
Right, that's good.
And
Very good.
Our mental advantage. That was our mental edge.
And that's when people talk about being streetwise, not to give away any of the street secrets, but that's exactly what is going on today in many of our hoods and many of our neighborhoods. I just want to transition, Isiah. November the 3rd is probably going to be the most consequential election, not only for Black America, but for all Americans. And of course, not only are we dealing with depression and stress, the pandemic, systemic racism, there are outright forces out to suppress the Black vote, to keep Black people from voting. And even on social media now, I'm noticing all these weird social media tweets and posts on Instagram discouraging Black people from voting, telling them that their vote doesn't count and all this. What can you say about all of what you know, Isiah, and all of what you have experienced of the importance of the Black vote in 2020, particularly for our young people?
I think it's a crucial time to really have this conversation about, we're talking about systemic racism, and we're talking about voting rights and birthrights. So let me see if I can break this down. In this country, before we were classified in these categories of Black, white, brown, people of color. Before race was invented, the social construct of race that was invented to basically control us as a population. When you are classified as white, you are born with birthrights. You don't have to fight for civil rights. You don't have to fight for equal rights. You don't have to fight for voting rights. But then when you're classified as Black, people of color, in those different classifications, we are fighting for equal rights, voting rights, birthrights that we have been denied. So what this election is all about is the continuation of us fighting for our birthrights that have been denied, and we have been taken out of the human race and put into these color-coded caste systems, where if you're classified as white, you get birthrights and you get all the goodies that come with white, and we have labeled that white privilege. And then if you're classified as Black or colored, you have to fight for those goodies in the membership of the United States of America. And what we've been fighting for since America's inception is that we want to be seen as human beings and equal. So I've been, and all of us who are on this panel right now, in our lifetime, we've been colored, we've been classified colored, we've been classified Negro,
yes,
classified Black, we've been classified Afro-American, we've been classified African-American, we've been classified everything except a member of the human race as a human being. So if we can get rid of these categories, and this is what November 3rd is all about. If you want to be part of the human race again, the international community, where you can walk out as a full-fledged human being and have all the birthrights that are owed to you. Okay, this is why every single male, and I'm gonna speak to all black males, because a lot of these all black males don't show up to vote. This is an important time. This is the most important time, because as Joe Biden said, the battle for the soul of this country is at stake.
Yes,
And I,
thank you. Thank you so much. That's a very important message um, uh, within the broader message of mental health, overcoming stress, and moving forward. You know, when I used to work with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. back in the day, we sang "We Shall Overcome." We were not overcoming, but we sang it because it was important to envision where we need to go. We didn't have full equality. You know, I still remember the white only signs, but I never let those signs, even as a kid. You know, sometimes I would defy. I know the water was the same. I refused to drink out of the colored water fountain, and knowing that that was the designation. A lot of times, we accept these castes, these systemic racism, as if it's normal, it's abnormal, and that's why even after the pandemic, I don't want us to go back to the old abnormal. We need a new normal. We really don't even know what the normal is because we've never experienced it. And I think that we need to, if we have a record turnout, men, women, young people who are over 18 can vote. And that's why I really want to thank, I know Mignon Moore helped us get this interview with you. I want to give a shout out to her and to all the black women who have done such a marvelous thing. And brothers, it's time for us to step up to the plate. You know, we just can't let the sisters go to the polls in record numbers. Brothers also got to go to the polls in record numbers. So thank you, Isiah, for adding that to this messaging today.
Well, thank you, and we definitely have to show up and show out, and as long as it takes to wait in that line, you stand in that line and you wait and you register to vote, because if you don't care enough about yourself, then just think about the next generation that's coming, because there was a generation before us that cared enough about us to stand in those lines and demand that the next generation has what we still are fighting for, freedom in the United States of America, to be whole and full and to be looked at as whole and full in the United States of America.
Yeah, and Isiah, you know, speaking of generations, when you look at today's NBA players, of course, led by LeBron James, they seem to be more vocal about social justice than others. Certainly, you know, there's been that comparison of LeBron James' outspokenness as opposed to Michael Jordan being quiet. What is your thoughts on these athletes of the NBA today?
You know, the athletes have always been outspoken, and I would say that more so than the athletes, I would say the champion, because when you look at the history of sports, when you look at the history of music and arts in our communities, this is how our culture was presented through the world. It was presented through music, arts, and sport, because they devalued us from a mental standpoint in terms of the education. So that the system devalued our education, and they only allowed us to basically progress through these gaps of arts, music, and sport. So whenever the champion got the mic in art, music, or sport, he or she, the community almost demanded that they speak for the voiceless.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you talk about the Muhammad Ali's, when you talk about the Bill Russells, when you talk about you know, the Sidney Poitiers and the Harry Belafontes, you know, the Cicely Tysons, it was
Right.
important that
Tommy Smith and John Carlos.
Tommy Smith, John Carlos, you know, when they were champions and they got the mic, because remember, in this America, we have all been rendered voiceless. Our community has been rendered voiceless. So the ones who do have the mic, they were always obligated to speak. Well, after our championship in 89, 90, then the next group took over. And you mentioned Jordan, and Jordan had his own personal choice where he didn't feel that that was his responsibility or obligation. So when you talk about a heritage, our heritage from a champion voice standpoint was lost. And therefore our culture got co-opted, manipulated, and sold. And for a while we were voiceless at the table when it came to these issues. This next group of champions that came along, the LeBron James, the Steph Currys, the Chris Pauls, when they took over, they started speaking up and speaking out again. And therefore, you see a change and there's a shift that's happening in our communities when Colin took the knee. So sports has always been a place for us to shine the light on the atrocities that are happening behind the curtain in our communities. And that's what we're thankful for with our athletes today, that they're doing again.
Yeah, absolutely. And Isiah, before we let you go, I do want to talk about your champagne and the other businesses that you're in, but particularly the champagne business that we see the bottles behind you. So tell us about that, Isiah.
Well, I just came from a presentation that I gave to Walmart, so that's why I got my shirt on. I don't mean to be disrespectful.
That's okay. We know we used to seeing you dressed down, but that's okay.
But currently, we got 200 acres over in the Aube region of Champagne. I'm the largest African-American owner, importer of champagne in the United States. We have a unique partnership with the NBA players where they are partnered with us to promote the champagne. Our champagne is known for its zero sugar and low sugar. We use 3 grapes in our champagne. We use the Pinot Noir grape, we use the Pinot Blanc grape, and the Chardonnay grape. We do not use the Pinot Meunier grape, which is a fast-growing filler grape in Champagne. The first press of the grape, we're the largest volume producer of first press grape champagne. And you may ask, excuse me, what's the difference between first, second, and third press? Well, the second press is a lower quality of champagne that most champagnes here in the United States are second press, which are, some of your big houses are sending over to the U.S. Second press. Third press of the grape of champagne is actually used for making vinegar and perfume. That's why when some drink champagne, they immediately complain of a headache, or if you drink too much of it, they physically get sick. So we give you the best of the best. We give you the highest quality. We give you the lowest sugar, and we bring it to you at an affordable price. And the name of our champagne is Shirlan Champagne.
Shirlan Champagne. Everybody remember that. We certainly will, because we know Isiah is going to send a box over to us, so we're not concerned.
Absolutely.
Well, I just want to thank Isiah for practicing what he preaches. First of all, he is a champion on the court, but now you're a champion entrepreneur. You're not only having negotiations in the corporate suite, you created your own corporate suite. And that's admirable. I think our young brothers and sisters who are watching this program, we always want them to aspire. And in order to aspire, we have to have role models that we can aspire to be like. And I just want to thank you, Isiah Thomas, for setting an example for the next generation to aspire to emulate. And thank you for the messaging, in particular now on mental health, as we've discussed today. And I think, Stacey, we're going to have to not just pause, but we're going to have to ask Isiah to come back at another time so we can continue this discussion. I think this discussion is so important. We don't want to put a period on it. We'll just put a comma or a semicolon, Isiah, on this show, and then we will continue. But on behalf of the Black Press of America, I just want to thank you once again. And you can rest assured that we're going to lift this messaging up. We're going to elevate the positives, all the positive things that are going on in our community, and not be overshadowed by these stereotypes and by these negative attempts to make our brothers and sisters feel that they are less worth. That you're right. There's only one humanity. And Dr. King said, an injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And I would say that an inhumanity anywhere is a threat to humanity everywhere. And we cannot afford to let anyone, no matter what they call it, systemic racism, whatever name, dehumanize us.
Yes.
And then we can't, I'm glad you came out with the right thing to drink, because a lot of us have been drinking the wrong thing. We've been following this Malcolm said, we've been swallowing the okadoke. And some of us player haters, we hate each other. When somebody gets success, we try to pull them down. That's not what we're about. We want to lift up. And Isiah, I just want to thank you for being a brother that our brothers and sisters can always aspire to follow.
Thank you. And I would just like to say to all of us, keep listening to positive music, positive messages. And to the young brothers and sisters out there, go turn on some old Earth, Wind, and Fire and see how you feel when you listen to it.
Absolutely. And one more time, the NAMI, National Alliance of Mental Illness Helpline, can be reached Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m., 1-800-950-6264. Isiah, thanks so much. Join us tomorrow. We're going to have another legend on tomorrow. Wynton Marsalis will be on, and hopefully he'll bring his instruments and play some music for us. Thank you so much for joining us, everyone. Stay well and stay safe.
God bless. Thank you.
Thank you.